saturation does. It makes the fat look different than the fluid. It's just a button that we push on our machine that lets us control what all is included on that slice. Okay? This is anterior, this is posterior. Now, if I wanted to look at something in my fat wall, in my anterior wall, which one am I going to choose? I'm going to choose T2, because look how fat looks here, and look how fat looks there. And if I'm wanting to find something, because I've got something just underneath the skin, I'm going to choose a T2. It's just my technique that I'm going to use. Just like we have harmonics, and we have a change of transducers, yours is a button. Okay. So what happens with the fat saturation, it removes the signal from fat. So I could use a T1, but I can use fat saturation, and then this will look different. It's just a technique. Does that help you? I hope I'm right. Because that's the way I understand it, you know. That's the way I understand it. Now, they don't know of any biological effects of MRI. None. But it's so young. What do they know? It's only been around since the early 80s. Okay? It's only been around since the early 80s. But if I have a pregnant woman that warrants the exposure of MRI, I'm going to do it. Okay? Now, if I have to inject contrast into her, what's the name of it? Patricia said it good. Galalini. Okay. I'm going to question that because she's got a fetus in there. Do they really, 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 really need that? Because they're finding that contrast settles in the brain. Okay? And it builds up in the brain. Just like X-ray builds up in your body. Okay? That's why you don't want to have a whole bunch of X-rays. Okay? Because the more X-rays you have, the more radiation you've been exposed to. Okay? But if my patient has right lower quadrant pain, what's there? Appendix, ovary, some of the ileum, the small bowel, the beginning of my ascending colon, you know. I'm going to see what I can see with ultrasound first. But if my imaging is no good, they're going to do an MRI. They're not going to do a CT on her. Especially in the first trimester when the baby is still forming. Okay? The third trimester, maybe if it was emergent. Okay? Because MRI is a lot more time consuming than CT. It's also more expensive than CT. Ultrasound is going to be their first go-to because it's quick and it's cheap. But if you can't see it, you can't see it. Okay? And if it's an emergent situation, they're going to choose another imaging modality. Some pathologies are better with CT, and some pathologies are better with MRI. But if you have any type of an implant, like a pacemaker or cochlear implants, like Miss Laura wouldn't be able to have an MRI.
Wow.
Because she's had some kind of one of her one of the things in her ear has been replaced. Not her cochlear implant, but she's got something else in there. Okay? Or say I have a device, you know, for people that are in pain management. You know, they have things attached to their skin or underneath their skin that it puts out a constant flow of medications.
For the right, the previous, yeah. No.
Which one?
The
MRI.
Yes, this one. For the right lower quadrant pain, that means if we have painful in this area, pain in this area, we better to do the MRI or?
No, I'm gonna do ultrasound first. But if I can't see what they're looking for,
So,
then they're gonna order an MRI.
then why you said there is nothing here in this area, because you mean this area was not affected by the MRI? Or?
No. I'm just asking everybody what the anatomy was in the right lower quadrant. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because we can see appendicitis on ultrasound. But it's one of the harder exams we do. And if you don't have the experience, you're gonna miss it. Okay? Because it's very operator dependent. CT. CT is radiation based. Okay? It gets its radiation from electrons, where MRI is photons. Okay? It is linked to abnormalities, such as miscarriages, childhood cancers. Okay?
You mean after a while of doing this, they discover the side effect of this?
Yeah, it can cause a pregnant woman to have a miscarriage. It can cause the baby to develop childhood cancers because of the radiation.
But okay, knowing this, do they still do a CT scan on a
Sometimes they will.
Image.
Think about it. Can you imagine all the hospitals in this, especially in the rural communities? Do you think they can afford an MRI? No. They're gonna have to drive, especially like in Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, they're gonna have to drive over 200 miles.
Wow.
Like where my ex-husband lives, you have to drive 2 hours to get to a convenience store,
Convenience store?
to get to a grocery store.
What?
He has to drive 2 hours.
Is he living here in Texas?
No, he lives in, well, right now he's living in Kansas. 2 hours.
A lot
Can you
right.
imagine to drive 2 hours to get a
Every
six-pack of
day?
beer?
Every day.
No, they only go on Tuesdays. They make a trip to town on Tuesdays.
Really? No traffic?
Okay, so you can imagine if they have to drive 2 hours to the next small town, that town might not even have an MRI. So what are they gonna do? CT,
Quicker.
okay?
Something related to the accident, like for the bone or skin,
Yeah,
to the CT scan or MRI.
a CT, because that's emergent, okay?
MRI take a long time.
Yeah, MRI takes a long time. And if I have somebody that they're having to bag, you know, to breathe, they're gonna do an MRI. I mean, they're gonna do a CT. Look them up, okay? So, the MRI has T1 and T2. The T2 is a higher signal than the T1 is. Okay. Again, what is this?
Pubic.
Pubic bone.
Rectopubic.
Space.
Retropubic
Space.
Face
Space.
pressure.
space of Ritzis. There's my bladder. No. Where am I looking at? This is bladder.
anterior.
This is let's say this is bladder. Where's my uterus? It must be a man.
The uterus is
it's
right above it.
over there.
Oh, here it is. I see it now. Thank you. Okay, little bitty uterus. Okay, let's do again. Space of Ritzis. Retropubic space. Anterior cul-de-sac. Vesico-uterine space. Uterus. Serosa. Myometrium. Endometrium. Myometrium. Serosa. Pouch of Douglas. Posterior cul-de-sac. Recto-uterine space. See how smart y'all are? Okay, this fine line that you see here, they tell us down here that we're looking at a sagittal vagina. What are some of the pathologies that are part of the vagina? I can think of two just right off the bat. Imperforated hymen.
Oh.
Okay, so if I have an imperforated hymen, I'm gonna have what? Hydrocolpus. If it's really backed up, I'm gonna have hydrometrocolpus. Also in the vagina, you have Gartner's duct cyst. Gartner's duct cyst. And that's all that I can think of. Or of course you can have sarcomas and all that kind of stuff. But the normal things that we see.
What about the blood? Is it, will we have hematoma?
Why would I have a hematoma?
I mean,
Hemata, yes, I could. If it's menstrual blood, yeah. Hematometrocolpus. But if it's just anechoic, it's hydrocolpus. Okay? Anterior, posterior, superior, inferior. Because it says it's a sagittal vagina. Because though it's just a canal that measures about 8 centimeters, those two walls touch one another, making the echogenic line because of physics. Okay? We can see tampons in the vagina. Okay? Oops, what was that? Okay. This little dot right here measures the density of the fluid. That density has a graph, has a chart with it. Like from here to here, it's cystic. From here to here, it's blood. From here to here, it's pus. From here to here, it's solid. There's a range that it goes through. And those are called Hounsfield units. Hounsfield units. So my Hounsfield unit is going to be different for this versus this. Okay? It's going to be different. What are these right here? Kidneys. So what's going on up here? So what do you think it is? Look, it's at the level of the kidneys. What do you think it is? We don't know. Okay? But we know it's either a serous cystadenoma or a serous cystadenoma carcinoma, or it's a mucinous cyst or a mucinous cystadenoma carcinoma. Cause it's up to this level. Here's my kidneys, the
Right.
level of my kidneys. Okay? So that's one huge ovarian mass to be that high. So it's come from here. Okay? This is a complex cyst. It has thick septations. I'm gonna put color on it.
Measure.
If there is blood flow in that thick septation, I have a carcinoma. Okay? This is also a hemorrhagic cyst. One of these cysts have bled. If my patient is going through infertility, what is this called?
That is called hyperstimulation.
Hyperstimulation. That's why it's important that we ask our patients, when was your last period? Are you on any hormones? Because they could be going through infertility treatments. We don't know that.
What's that again?
You have to ask.
Okay.
Ovarian hyperstimulation. Why is it not PCOS? Correct. It's not an ovary with follicles around the periphery or the string of pearls. Okay. Here is a hemorrhagic cyst. Is this hemorrhagic brand new or is it old? It's old. It's already starting to break down. Okay, it's the red blood cells are already starting to necrose. And in return, it's building septations. Because red blood cells are sticky. And so they stick to one another. Even though they're necrosing, their walls are still stuck together. And that's what causes the septation. Okay? So it's fairly large. And so they decided to do an an MRI on it because they wanted to know what else was going on in the body. What time is this class over? 10? Oh, I'm late? Nobody reminded me.
We love your review, so that's fine.
I think the professor dismisses the class.
You know me by now. You know I'm a goofball.
That's what I told my kids.